we will be doing another geopolitical discussion. I have my I have my phone set up so that I don't have to hold it paused, but that way I can snack. I just had a ice cream cone. Yes, I had an ice cream cone in freezing weather. I'm a fall baby, so that's what I do. Random, what's up? I love history says hi. What's up? I love history. Hopefully, this will be a discussion for you. I love history. I'm doing well. Random says how you doing? Carlton Way, what's going on, man? Said peace, Just A Contrarian, and chat. Um, so guys, if you haven't seen the headline, it's another geopolitical conversation. This time about the Middle East. We had to get into this. I had to think, what could I do after going from America to Europe, and I'm switching off to Asia, different parts of Asia, except for one particular place in Asia I will not be talking about, and people probably already know why. Make sure this volume is all the way up. All right. So talking about the Middle East, and will the stuff going on in the Middle East lead us to World War III? Because it's looking that way. I mean, we have the recent turmoil in Syria where Bashar Assad fled the country and went to Moscow. Russia couldn't even ensure the security of Syria. And somehow we got involved, started bombing people. It seems like Biden is just determined to get us in World War III before he leaves office. If you guys hear the music in the background, I'm watching a Korean, not Korean, it's actually a channel based in Japan, but they are today in Korea for like their Christmas stuff. Um, 2024 Seoul's Best Christmas Lights 4K HDK Korea, and the channel's called Virtual Japan. This is really nice. Um, well, the beginning was a little bit of music. Now it's just them walking around Seoul. And the description says took a trip to Seoul, South Korea for a few nights to check out the Christmas lights around town. Unlike the winter illuminations in Tokyo, the ones in Seoul seem to be more focused on department stores or shopping malls rather than large public spaces, and it was equally enjoyable. The malls in Seoul were just amazing, and for sure, I hope to come back in the future for more filming. There were some other major Christmas and winter illumination that started the weekend after I left, unfortunately, but I'll for sure try to get them next time. So that's the description of what the person is filming. So it's really picturesque. And I like whoever the content creator behind this channel or content creators, probably more than one. I love how they start the intro off with like some melodic sort of music to get you into it. And then it just has like a nice little walk around. So Carlton says I want to visit Asia one day, maybe Tokyo. You gotta visit Tokyo. Tokyo was so fun. I can't wait to go back. I've been there a couple of times. I love it. It's every geek's dream to go there, and the women are beautiful. Like hands down. Tokyo has been my favorite city to visit overseas. I mean, my favorite city, period, is Tokyo. Um, my second favorite probably be mm, maybe Bangkok or Taipei. Ben, cut the shit out. No one gives a fuck about that. No one cares about that dumb shit. Seriously, go somewhere else and troll. That's your warning. Next time I'm just gonna ban you. Speaking of which, it came to my attention from one of my moderators that I have overshared. So I will stop doing that. I don't care if you're a fucking kid, Ben. Get the fuck off my channel. If you're a kid, you shouldn't be on my channel anyway. Purposely set it up that this is not for kids. So go to fuck somewhere else, you stupid bastard. I don't put up with dumbass kids. You probably don't have a father, or your dumbass wouldn't be on a live stream at this time of night. Because I certainly wouldn't let my fucking kid be on some random channel live while someone's live streaming with a bunch of adults. Your parents failed you as a child. Get the fuck off my channel. Carlton, you gotta let them know, bro. Besides that, anyway, I want to get right into it. So, being a veteran, I've had my experiences with the Middle East. We got called up not once but twice to go over there. The first time got called off. The second time we had to go. Because he's probably a 60-year-old man. No, he's probably 13, to be honest. He probably is 13. A lot of these trolls are actually kids. Like, I was just watching this other guy, Poor Man's Podcast, and this guy was getting trolled by someone, and he pulled up all his information. And the dude was like, "Well, I'm just a kid." He's like, "Well, you should have thought of that before you came on here and trolled," because he put out all the kids' information. Joe Cox, you're banned. Get the fuck off my channel, fucking loser. See, I'm not putting up with any mentally ill people. If you're mentally ill, if you're retarded, if you're underage, I don't want you here. If you're not drop, if you're not dropping a super, if you're not dropping a super, you cannot troll here. If you're 10, your parents failed you. There's no way a 10-year-old should be on a fucking live stream 10:30 at night, or however time it is where you live, with adults. When you go on this live stream, it clearly indicates that this is not for children. Any disagreement, your parent, um, that's I don't argue with kids, but I will beat up their parents. Anywho, so like I was saying, when I was in the army, we were still in the midst of the Afghanistan war, the Iraqi war, and the general turmoil going on throughout the Persian Gulf. First time they got called up, well, I didn't have to go because I had already switched to a different unit. Andrews got banned. I look nothing like Don Cheadle, so as soon as you say that, you're banned. Tired of that. I literally look nothing like Don Cheadle other than we're both black. So anyone that makes a comparison of me to someone who I remotely look nothing like like you say Don Cheadle or Gus Fring, I'm banning you. It won't be a timeout, it'll just be a ban. The only way you can troll is if you drop money. If you're not dropping money, you're not going to troll here. And I put that on everything. So I know this discussion is going to get contentious. I'm going to say this up front. I have my views. Some people will disagree, and that's all right. We can disagree without being disagreeable people. Okay. But people who just come here to troll, I'm not even timing you out anymore. I'm just banning you. Omar Zaman says the American army is so much superior to the other armies. Why is there so much problems? Why wasn't everybody not taking a nap seriously? Like, how strong is the Taliban? Taliban is incredibly, and Taliban runs Afghanistan. They are very strong because we trained them. During the 80s, we trained the people who became the Taliban to fight against the Soviets. If you don't believe me, watch Rambo 3. Literally, the whole movie is about that. And then we abandoned them in the time when we should have been helping them in nation building, which is how they got radicalized. And no matter how strong your army is, it's only but so much you can do if you stretch thin across the entire world, or if you're fighting a different sort of war than the one for which you are trained. Urban combat is much different than jungle combat, than mountain combat, than desert combat, than marine combat, and so on. Moonless says, and we left our hand-me-downs. No, I'm not talking about the Afghanistan war right now, but you're right, Moonlit. I'm talking about back in the 80s. Like, we fully trained the Taliban to fight against the Soviet Union at the time. Problem was, in the point when they were nation building, we abandoned them. And that's what radicalized them. People don't understand. Like Carlton White, he said, yep, that relationship with the Taliban is deep. Yeah, people don't know. We work closely with them. We train them. They're not the only ones we train. Guess who else we train? Al-Qaeda. We trained al-Qaeda back in the day. Guess why? When Iraq and Iran were beefing, guess who we backed? Guys don't know. All the shit that goes on in the Middle East is blowback from over 70 years of history there between us, the Soviets, and the British, and the locals. We backed We always talk about Saddam Hussein being evil. We at one point backed Saddam Hussein. Again, back in the 80s. So this is why I tell people there's no such thing as good guys and bad guys when it comes to geopolitics. There's just people who are our adversaries now and people who are our allies now. That can change. This was what I was warning people about Putin the other day. People want us, the Democrats want you to believe that Putin is such an evil person. Because they can point to him and say he's the boogeyman. Back in the day, 30 years ago, it was the Russia was the bad guy of Republicans, not Democrats. You see how I flipped? That should make you call into question these so-called designations of good guy, bad guy when it comes to the geopolitical arena. Carlton says facts. Mullen says, yeah, I've always said we don't need to be in the Middle East, but it was like a lot of like manifest destiny. One of it was for strategic reasons. The other was obviously for oil, no matter what they say. Definitely about oil. I bet you people don't even know why we got into the Persian Gulf War back in the 90s in the first place. Omar says, wait, sorry. Omar says, okay, Google, what do you think about Muammar Gaddafi? Why was he killed? Google, are you calling me Google? He was killed by his own people. He oppressed his own people in Libya. That was during the Arab Spring of 2011. A lot of authoritarians through American and NATO intervention were pushing them back against their authoritarian leaders. Gaddafi was one of them. They unalived him, not us. But the reason why we've often backed authoritarian leaders is that they keep stability in these countries. Saddam Hussein kept stability in Iraq, of which without him, it would have fell into a bunch of tribal factions, which is exactly what happened after he passed away. It passed into a bunch of tribal factions. Terrorists, or is radical Islamic groups or whatever are good at they're good at destabilizing governments and overthrowing them. They're bad at nation building. Once Saddam was knocked out off the plate, people like al-Qaeda and then their offspring ISIS weren't very good at piecing things together. Not to mention some of the other groups trying to get the Shiites and the Sunnis to cooperate with each other. Not to mention the Kurds. Gaddafi, likewise, like Saddam Hussein, kept the country together. Authoritarian leaders are good at stabilizing um, otherwise quite despondent government nations. Mullah says Gaddafi, you know exactly why. He had been on our list for so long, though. You knew it was only a matter of time with him. Carlson, Carlson says they want to do Putin like Gaddafi, but that will not be wise. It really won't. Russia will fall to, without a strong man like him, it's going to fall between the oligarchs, the head people in the government, and the military. And they're going to fight it out. I'm pretty sure there have been attempts on Putin's life. Don't I, More than likely that man's gonna live he's gonna live his natural life just like Fidel Castro did. So many attempts on a man's life. He died. He ended up dying of natural causes. Omar says, "No, tell me why, dude. I am not your encyclopedia." If Moonlight wants to give you that info, that's cool. Moonlight says Clinton's was starting that, and Lil Bush wanted to impress his daddy, Bush. So yeah, it's been a whole process. On a very human side of things, I can see Bush being like, "Oh, they tried to kill my father. I'm gonna get these mother." I get it. That's a very human response. Not the best response, but a very human response. But taking us into a second war with them by fabricating this intel about weapons of mass destruction such a was such a big issue. And now it's like all but forgiven now because so many people have short-term memory. Now Trump is the big bad, but back in the 2000s, Bush was the big bad, and people have completely forgotten all the stuff that he's done between the Patriot Act, um, censoring government whistleblowers, the whole false pretenses of going into Iraq, um, and many other things. But getting back to what I was trying to say about 10 minutes ago, um, most people aren't aware the original reason for the first Persian Gulf War back in the early 90s. And I know this because of my geography professor, is that um, it was over oil, not our oil per se. So what happened was Kuwait was taking oil from Iraq. Iraq told them to stop. So although initially they did, they started using American technology to siphon Iraqi oil from underground. When Iraq found out what they were doing, they invaded Kuwait and attacked them for it. Kuwait was our strategic ally. Um, so we basically gave Kuwait the ability to steal Iraqi oil after they had been told to stop. That's what brought on the first Persian Gulf War. When when my geography professor first told me that, I was like, "Wait, what?" He was like, "Yeah, you didn't know that." I was like, "No." Of course, this was 2 years before I joined the army, but that was still a bit shocking to hear. Omen says, "So do you believe I said I'm not saying you should have said been kept alive? What? So do you believe what I said? I'm not saying you should have been." I'm not saying he should have been kept alive and continue to roll on. No, I'm not making a value judgment. I'm saying the Libyan people themselves unalived him when his when he was when his government was toppled. He was an authoritarian leader. This was in the midst of the Arab Spring of 2011, and all these authoritarian rulers were being brought down collectively through the intervention that American military and intel were doing in the region at the time. This was something that was spearheaded under Obama's administration. Again, Obama was more hawkish than Bush was, and a lot of people were surprised by that he was such a hawkish person. Like he was doing stuff that the neocons had loved. Mona says off topic. Just came back from the hospital. Stitches out now, and I bought a cool Spider-Man lunchbox for my nephew and a raptor fossil. Have cat send it. Okay, cool. Is it a is it an old fashioned like tin lunchbox, or is it like the plastic ones? Either way, it's still cool. Carlton says, "Yup." And Boone says, I Kim Jong Un is next." Um, I don't know. People have been talking about North Korea folding for decades now. Every time it seems like they're in the brink of folding, they keep going like a roach. Like they lose a leg and they just keep hobbling on. They've been through three autocratic leaders. Each leader has been worshipped as a god, which I'm not joking. The grandfather, the father, and now the father. I mean, the grandfather, the father, now the son. Um, Outside of something happening to North Korea, I don't see anything happening to Kim Jong Un. But we'll see. Especially if it involves another country I'm not going to talk about. Aiden Delaware says, "Hello, would you like an inspirational quote?" No, I don't. You asked me that before. I told you I don't deal in hokey fortune cookie shit like that. No offense. But you asked me that before. And I told you before, no. Anyway, Omar says, "Do you believe it was true, all the things they said about Saddam Hussein?" Oh, Ms. Contrarian says, "Hi, everyone." Hey, Mrs. Contrarian. Thanks for being here, baby. Eric says, "What are we talking about?" This is a geopolitical discussion today about the Middle East. J.A.C says, "Evening, what's up, G?" Molly says, "Hi, Mrs. Contrarian." He says, "She's had a rough political leader, too." Oh, don't get me started. Trust me, that's on the list. Philippines is definitely on the list. Since I can't talk about that other country, I can talk about the Philippines, but I'm not going to dog them out because obviously I have vested interest in not to not to dog them out. Um, Almost as you believe it's true all the things they said about Saddam Hussein, about him torturing all these people and put people through and put people through meat grinders and the longest bad things. I don't know what you mean. Did he torture people? Allegedly, yes. That's not surprising. We torture people. That was something we found out during the Bush administration. We torture people. We call them interrogation tactics. Is torture. One of the military occupational specialties I decided not to do was Russian interrogator, because when I was with the recruiters, they were telling me what that meant. You'll learn like a specific dialect of Russian, and you'll be responsible for these. You don't have to torture people. No thanks. Yes, Hussein tortured people. Let's be brutally honest. Most countries, when it comes to collecting intel and military, do some sort of torture. It's just like it's like a it's like the biggest it's like the most widely known secret. It's sort of like fraternity the revelation that fraternities and sororities still haze people. Duh. Yes, fraternities and sororities still haze people. They can call it anything they want. They can call it just rushing. They can call it just going through the process and processing. For the Black Greek lettered organizations, they call it in processing, being on the line. But you get hazed. Anything other than signing your name to the to a contract to become a member and paying your dues is hazing. They haze militaries and intel communities. Sure, that's one of the resources of how they collect information. Hey Agatha, she says hi Mullet Fern. Um, Almost as wild as something that I was wondering about. How did he not get killed with all the templates? Um, like what protected Fidel Castro? Fidel Castro got protected, one, because he's intelligent. He's been around since the 50s. He ruled that country since the 50s. There have been numerous assassination attempts on Fidel. They even sent honeypots after him. If you don't know what a honeypot is when they send a woman out to seduce you and then kill you later. The messed up thing is the freaking honeypots fell in love with the man. Like, there was a report showing us a few times they sent honeypots after Fidel Castro. Like, and it's actually like it's documented. And he said, what are you here to do? You trying to kill me? She's like, yes, I must kill you. And he just he just goes up to her. I was like, go ahead, kill me. He said, you don't want to do this. You don't want to kill me. Like he he laid the game on him. Fidel Castro had Riz. Yes, Fidel was Rizful. Okay, Gen Zs. Fidel Castro had that Riz. You know you have Riz when you keep a spy from killing you, because she if you can seduce an assassin, you got Riz. That is the true definition of Riz. You can seduce an assassin. The CIA's had numerous attempts on that man's life, poisoning him and everything else. Never worked. There's been attempts on Putin. Hasn't worked yet. And that's probably not. He was a former KGB leader. Well, KGB. He was a former KGB officer, and if I'm not mistaken, the department in the KGB that he worked in was psychological operations, psyops. So he's going to be hard to get. Mona says, good question, Omar. Thank you, Mona, whoever you delete. I think that was the Abdura guy. I'm just going to ban him because we already told him stop with that faggot ass shit. I'm going to be completely blunt. I'm sorry I got to use strong words, but we've already told him stop with the gay stuff. Like, no, we told him not once, not twice, but thrice. Don't talk to other straight men that way. Don't call another straight man beloved. Like that's just off. That's just out of pocket. So I'm just gonna ban him. He can go have his little faggot fantasy somewhere else. Sorry, not sorry. Mona says it's always been about oil and money. That's what war generates. Not well. That is part of it. It's also geopolitics with with U.S. with the U.S. and its allies, and with the Soviet Union and its allies. They have played two. There's another thing I learned in geography, because geopolitics falls under geography. So I'm playing geography nerd today. So there's two mainstream political strategies that we have pursued, and the Soviet Union and Russia pursued. Ours was, so one is controls the whoever controls the borders, or the coastlines, or whatever, the coastlines, the borders, whatever, of the biggest land masses of the world will dominate the world. The other strategy is whoever controls most of the land mass within the largest areas of the world will dominate. And that's how we've played it back and forth. This is how you had the US and NATO versus the Warsaw Pact. One of us would go and we would we would either support dictators who agreed with our agenda and supported it, even if it meant suppressing democracy. Whereas the Soviet Union will go and try to put in place democratic leaders or socialists who support their agenda. And we've seen this play out for like 70 years. And the current fucked up state of the world is basically due to us playing these war games for the past 70 years. This Game of Thrones. Of course, now we seem to be playing it with another player, whom I can't mention. But you know what I'm talking about. C to the H to the I to the N to the is a. Omar says, our school teacher told us that Iraq had invaded Kuwait and stole all of their stuff, and it was doing bad things, and that's the reason why that in the United States we went to war with them. Again, partially true, but what I said is a lot of people don't identify with the fact, or unaware, that Kuwait started the whole thing when they were stealing Iraqi oil, and Iraq ordered them to stop. And then, after being told by Iraq to stop, Kuwait continued to steal oil from Iraq by using American technology to siphon Iraqi oil from underground. When Iraq found out, they invaded them to stop what was going on, and then it just ballooned from there. Moonless says, Omar, history is told by those who won wars is always corrupt. Mostly so, but there's a saying that truth is the daughter of time, which relates to history insofar as once something has happened far enough in the past, we can go back and be more objective about it and say, okay, well, this is what actually happened. And we can use historiography and biogeography to look at these sorts of things. One says it's an old-fashioned 10 lunch boxes, brand new and dope as fuck. Oh yeah, like so the one I got at like you saw the one the Batman one I got at Hallmark, the 10. I don't know if you were on my live stream when I showed it, but I have like a 10 Batman lunchbox. It's an old-fashioned one, but it's actually new, but it's just made to look old-fashioned because it's 10 and it's made by Hallmark. I remember when I bought it, this is like 9 years ago. It was this old lady there, this old white lady, and she started smiling. She was like, "You remind me just of my son. She was like, he likes buying vintage stuff too." So that was sweet of her. Almost as best history is written by the winners. I won't say best history. I would say the biased history we get from winners. Not that losers give us the better history either. Losers often will paint people in a poor light too. This is why we need the modern techniques of historiography. Historiography is a scientific methodology in history whereby we can gain historical we can we can ascertain historical facts by verifying things, historical claims, by looking at independent sources of that claim and being able to say, okay, well, this person said it, and this person said it, and that person said it. None of them know each other, and none of them share the same information. So it's looking like the information they're sharing independently of each other corroborates with with this claim. In essence, that's like a part of the methodology of historiography. Jace has spent the whole day at the hospital with my daughter. She's good, but thank goodness for free healthcare. Yo, good for you, man. I hope your daughter's okay. And so near to Christmas too. So hopefully everything's good with you and your daughter, man. One says I can't talk about Thailand online, but I love to in person. Yeah. Oh, I know. Don't being a guest of that country. Don't put yourself in a rough spot. Which is like I said, if I do talk about the Philippines, it's not going to be in any sort of. It will be a very um, limited talk. Okay, I'm not going to put myself in. I'm not going to put me or my wife in a bad way talking about them in a bad light. Plus, I really don't honestly have too much bad to say about them, to be quite honest. But there have been things that have happened there. Mola says, Jay, cheers, man. That's awesome. Agnes is saying, hi, good night, sir. Just coming on. Omar says, the Philippines has beautiful women over there. Absolutely. That's why I got my wife over there. Got my wife from the Philippines. Beautiful women. And Mola said, yeah, they do. Moon says W chat super chat is bottom right of your screen, and he says hi to Agatha. Agatha says like, share, and subscribe. All thanks. Moon says Castro was full on thugging. Well, I don't want to get this into a talk about Castro because that can be a whole discussion for another day. But again, he wasn't all good. He wasn't all bad. Like most historical figures, like most historical figures, he is a complicated person. That's what I want people to get from this geopolitical discussions. There's no good guys and bad guys. It's very messy. It's messy. Only time we have clear-cut good guys and bad guys are in comic books. But in the real world, things get messy. all. I mean, you could say a lot of bad things about Fidel. Fidel got organized crime kicked out of his he got the mafia moved out of his country because they were like a they were like they took full advantage of the corruption in his island before he took control. Um, it it was a very seedy place run by an aristocracy of mostly white Cubans, which is why all those white Cubans on Miami hate Fidel and hate the Cuban government because he was looking out for the poor black Cubans. People don't want to talk about that part. It was very racialized in Cuba. The poor people who were suffering were the poor Afro Cubans, and Fidel was looking out for them when he came into power. Their aristocracy rebelled against him and fled. That's why you have all those ultra conservative white Cubans in Miami. They are the ones who felt ostracized in Cuba because he took away their privilege. But anyway, well, I don't want to get into Cuba today. Omar says, yeah, but all countries are supposed to oppose. I mean, I suppose, but abide by a certain color of contact of prison. You gotta spell check before you put this stuff in, man, because I don't know what you're saying. Um, yeah, Omar, you need to do a little spell checking before you publish your stuff, because I can't really follow what you're saying sometimes. A certain color of contacts or of prisoners of war or however you want to say, but I don't think anybody does. I don't know what you mean. Anyway, Carlton says Castro had a crisp mouthpiece. Hashtag the Cuban Mac. I'm telling you, I'm not even making this shit up. I wish I was, but no. You could guys, you can Google it for yourself. Like for one, it's documented there was numerous assassination attempts on him by the American government. That's a fact. Second one is they did try honeypot assassination attempts on him. They failed because he macked the fucking assassins. He was like, "You don't want to kill me," and think of a young. Most people think of the older Fidel Castro, the fat guy with the gristly beard and the little curly afro. Look at a picture of young Fidel Castro. Okay, he was like Mark. What's that Latino singer? Um, Fuck, I can't remember, but he was a fly dude when he was younger. He was a fly dude. Okay, you imagine a younger Fidel and these little honeypots assassins coming after him. And he's like, shirt off, no Diddy, but shirt off. Talking about he got the girl with the knife to his chest. He's like, go ahead, kill me, go ahead. And she's like, I can't. He's like, that's right, you can't kill me. You can't kill me. You love me. Castro was that dude. He was that dude. He was definitely the Cuban Mac. Jay says Fidel's the original Austin Powers. Guys, seriously, when you get off the stream, go ahead and look that up. You gonna be like, damn, he was right. I think I'm like, yeah, Just A Contrarian was right. Like, I'm telling you. Moon says, yeah, he was fully Diddy with that beloved stuff. Yeah, man. And he kept doing it. Like, and I kept asking, he kept laughing. So he understood what we were saying to him, especially when the first time it happened. Remember, the whole chat room was like, yo, you out of pocket. Like, don't talk to other men that way. And he was like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with that." Then he was saying, "Oh, but I have a woman." I'm like, that don't mean anything. A lot of guys on the down low have women. This is how STIs are spread because they go from pillow biting to with women and they spread diseases that way. Another thing is, this is another inconvenient truth for a lot of people, but there's more STIs in the in the alphabet community than there is among straight people. A lot of people don't want to admit that, but if you look up health statistics, there are more STIs within the alphabet community than amongst straight people. Even when I took health class, I remember in high school, the teacher was like, "Look, and for someone to get AIDS, you have to be doing the wrong thing with the wrong person at the wrong time." That's exactly how he put it. And this is in the 90s, so that was probably his politically correct. That was like his attempt of being politically correct. But he basically said, look, to get AIDS, you have to be doing the wrong thing with the wrong person at the wrong time. And he's not wrong. STIs are highest within the alphabet community. If people don't believe me, they can look it up. But as far as Abdur is concerned, the dude is down low. Because I don't care if he does have a woman, assuming that's true. The dude's still swinging on the fence, especially after we asked him not to do that because how it comes off. He didn't care that everything he said was a fucking pause. So anyway, getting back to the story. Omar says, yeah, while Fidel had that game, he had that something going on. Carson says, yeah, I think that's New York slang. He said, Moon said, no, it's East Coast. Omar said, what is psychological operations? What does that mean? How could you know about it? What you mean, how could I know about it? Psychological operations, or PSYOPs for short, is something that's done in both the military and the intel community to to manipulate. Sorry, I'm fucking these pistachios up. Anyway, psychological operations is used to manipulate your enemy, um, outwit them, frustrate them, get them to do things they shouldn't do. I'm trying to be as vague as possible, but psychological operations has been a part of military strategy probably since, I'm going to say, at least since like the mm, at least since the late Middle Ages, when we started having modern espionage during the time of Queen Elizabeth, and she started having uh when she had her own spy master. The original Queen Elizabeth. I think that's when we started really having modern espionage and psyops and stuff like that. But as a way to manipulate, confuse, outwit your opponents. Also, it's different parts, components of psychological operations. Not all of it is manipulative. Some of it is actually beneficial. Like when you go out and actually give give like material support to your enemies during a crisis, and you go out and actually help them. That's psychological operations too. So it's not all about just the negative side of it. There's a positive aspect of psychological operations too when you actually go out and help people that brings them to your side when they see you helping them. That's also a part of psyops. So, um, Mullen says off topic. Oh my, Google exists, right? Leon, that's a funny name, Leon Stroker. These are World War III equals extinction level event. It doesn't have to be. It can be if we start using nukes. That's the scary thing about World War III is we don't know how far it will go. In World War II, we were the only nuclear armed countries, so we were holding the big stick. Now we in Russia are equal in our our nuclear our how do I want to put it, and the number of nukes we have, the higher technology nukes. China comes in close as well. Everyone, no one wants two countries that are part of the UN Security Council to go to war with each other, because all the permanent members of the UN Security Council are nuclear armed countries: the US, UK, France, Russia, China, where all the permanent members of the UN Security Council are nuclear armed. And there's a few other countries that are nuclear armed as well: India, Pakistan, I think Canada, um, and potentially North Korea and Iran. We, but we need to bring it back to the Middle East, though. Omar says, "Wow." One says, "I don't believe World War III is going to happen in now time. Again, if World War III happens, World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." As assuming there'll be anyone left to fight a World War IV. Um, and Leon says World War IV will be fought by microbes. Exactly. Actually, a lot of you are missing one thing. All of us are like cognizant of the fact that nukes are an ever-present danger in a global war arena. But there's other things you haven't taken into factor as well. Military research and development is working on biological weapons. Most importantly, the thing this is it may not be as exactly like in the last James Bond movie, No Time to Die, but they are actually tinkering with race-based weapons. So when people still talk about race as just a social construct, no. If you can target someone based on their racial or ethnicity, uh, ethnic group, that is there's a underlying biological reality to it. So they are tinkering with race-based weapons. So something we need to be very fearful of in a new global war is biological based weapons, especially as in a global war we're going after targets who are of a specific ethnic group, like say going back to the Middle East, people of a certain um, descent, like an Arab people of Arabic descent, right? Or what if they go after people of you know, a certain Western European descent, or so forth and so on. Biological weapons, like race-based weapons, can play a part in the next global war. That's something to be really worried about. Although you can't really do anything about nukes, um, the fact that you can be targeted and not even see it coming. I mean, maybe it's worse when you can see it coming. I don't know. I guess it's you can pick your poison, but biological based weapons um, can be very scary. Those can be weapons of mass destruction. Almost as so you remember the first George Bush in the early '90s? Of course, I'm in my 40s, so I remember when George Bush Senior got elected. Before he was elected, he was the vice president under Ronald Reagan, and before that, George Bush was head of the CIA. So this was always a man of power. Matter of fact, I think he took an old picture either in Time magazine. It was like Time magazine or Newsweek, and it showed him as head of the CIA. He looked every bit as a dude that you do not want to f with. This was George Bush Senior. A lot of people don't know about that. Before he was the vice president under Ronald Reagan, he was head of the CIA. Mullen says, please remember chat. He's reading and responding to every comment, so give him time to catch up. Yes, please. Omar says he did some very bad things that at the very big meeting, the representatives from Bangladesh tarp his papers. Tarp? You mean tore up? I don't get what you're saying. Omar says George Bush was an a-hole. Eh. Again, every president has been problematic for one reason or another. What brought George Bush Sr. down was Bill Clinton got him on that no new taxes. He had told the American public back in '91 that there would be no higher taxes under him, and he had to renege on that, and Clinton called him out on it. And this is why ever since the Clintons, their catchphrase is "It's the economy, stupid." Like at the end of the day, most people are going to vote based on their self-interest, which is usually their pocketbook, their wallet. When you do stuff that affects their wallet, that's the most likely scenario where you're going to get put out of office. This happens to authoritarians too, by the way, because I want to keep bringing this back to the original discussion in the Middle East. Almost as George Bush, dude. I'm trying to keep it focused on the Middle East though, so please. But he says George Bush had Americans drop bombs on on then. You really got a spell check too. On then considered the East Pakistan bananas, Bangladesh. Yeah, because they were doing terrorist shit. We don't just look. We don't just drop bombs on someone for no reason. So we may not be always privy to everything, but we're not going to just attack. a sovereign nation without provocation. And this is not just us. We got to remember this in general. When Russia invaded Ukraine, it was not unprovoked. Okay, as Israel's now dealing with Hamas and their supporters, whether it has Hezbollah, the Iranian National Guard, the Houthi pirates of Yemen, and others, this was not unprovoked. They provoked it. And I was hinting at this at the last live stream. We This stems all the way back to 1947. And if we really want to be accurate, it goes back all the way to the biblical times. And we're about to dive deep into it. I've been trying to avoid it, but we're going to go into it. We're going to go into it. I know it's going to hurt some people's feelings and they're going to be mad at me, but we're going to go into it as soon as I get through these comments. Jay says Fidel is Justin Trudeau's real dad. Heard that rumor? No, I've not heard that. I think people just hate Trudeau, so they'll align him with someone that they dislike. There's no evidence that Trudeau is even Latino. um, as far as I know. Moon says not exactly. Omar says, "Do you believe there's any truth in the movie Scarface? Or was it just based on fiction?" Well, the character is fictional, but the scenario in which the movie happened is real. Castro did release a lot of Cuban prisoners out of their prisons and let them come here as refugees to America, the same way Venezuela has been doing with their prisoners. And you had people here, Democrats and liberals, saying, "Oh, that's just made up." No, it's not, because it's happened literally before. This is a tactic used in these authoritarian socialist countries. Venezuela is a socialist autocratic government. It's why a country rich in oil is such a poor country, because it's run through socialism. A capitalist country would be very wealthy when it has an abundance of oil. Venezuelan oil reserves should make it one of the wealthiest nations in South America. It should probably make them the wealthiest country in South America because of their oil, but because they choose to run their country through a centrally planned economy and socialist politics, they remain poor. The current gang that is terrorizing the U.S., Tren de Agua, was a prison gang. A prison gang doesn't make it all the way here to America if they weren't released from prison. And that's exactly what Castro did around the 60s and 70s. I think it was around the 70s when he released all these prisoners out of the Cuban prisons and let them flee here to America. And they became the scourge of southern Florida, particularly Miami, situated specifically in Little Havana, where you can get an awesome Havana sandwich, probably bang out some nice Cuban chicks, but that's neither here nor there. But yes, the situation under which the Scarface movie happens is real, but the characters, no, they're not real. Eric says, "Why was my comment on Saddam deleted?" I didn't delete it. That might have been the algorithm, because I didn't even see anything unless one of moder one of my moderators did it, but I didn't even see a comment from you about Saddam, Eric. Um, Moon says, I lived in Miami. Omar, that's not how it happened. Right. That's definitely fictional. Miami ain't going down. It wasn't that much of a Wild West. Shit has happened, though. But no. Scarface is completely fictional. But it made a good video game, GTA Vice City. GJ says you're thinking of Mark Anthony. Yeah, probably. He, a young Fidel was probably like a Mark Anthony of his time. Yeah. Omar says, what was the worst thing you saw in combat? Well, first of all, don't ask. I I didn't see combat, luckily. But two, don't ask combat veterans that. That is a very rude thing to ask. Do not ask combat veterans what's the any anything a combat veteran has seen. They do not want to share with people who have not been there. Don't ask a combat veteran that. Just my FYI. That they will just ignore you, if not say something rude to you, which you probably don't want to hear. Don't ask that. Anyone else here who's a vet will tell you the same thing. Don't ask combat veterans stuff like that. Mona says pistachios forever, right? Omar says, what was the best food that you had when you was overseas? My wife's food, hands down. My wife's food is the best food I've had overseas. Um, I guess that counts. Yeah, well, we were overseas and she made it, so yeah, that counts. Yeah, because that was the first time I had Filipino food was when she made it for me. So my wife's food is the best food I had overseas in the Philippines. Mona says, Omar, you sound like a Fed. Right. I think he's just young Moonlit, but that's what I was telling him. Cat says hello, Contrarian, Moonlit, and everyone. What's up, Cat? You still here, Mrs. Contrarian? Omar says, why you asking some really out of pocket questions now, man? You said, so did you ever help out any of the enemies? I don't know where you're going with that question, dude. That sounds definitely like a Fed question. First of all, no. I take my I take my oath seriously. I took my oath to protect and to defend the U.S. Constitution with utmost sincerity. I took my oath of marriage with the utmost sincerity. Shoot, I even took my oath as a Boy Scout with sincerity. So I'm not betraying either of those three things. Three, what do you mean by enemy? I mean, sorry, two, what do you mean by enemy? And three, why would you think someone would tell you that? This is what Miss Nita was warning me earlier. She was like, stop over. She was like, as a friendly reminder, she's like, stop oversharing on your live stream. So I'm taking what Miss Nito says to heart because some of you ask some out of pocket questions, and I think it's for ulterior motives. So I won't be answering when it comes to certain questions like my location or the locations of other people. I will not be given that. If you ask me some questions dealing specifically about aspects of my past, I won't be answering that either. To ask something like that is really out of pocket, dude. You do sound at this point. Moonlit is completely right. You sound like a Fed. Agatha says like, share, and subscribe. Thanks. Thank you, Agatha. Omar said, yes, I remember in the 1990s and 1980s, there was always a fear of a nuclear war going on. He said, are you scared of a nuclear? Anyway, Catherine says, totally agree about the biological based weapons. Moonlit says, Chernobyl has two giant packs of dogs that evolved to withstand radiation. Really? Is one of them named Crypto? Please stop. Please stop. Sorry, I love crypto. Anyway, wait till they wait Moonlit. Wait till they find out that Batman has a dog too. Being that James Gunn is an animal lover, I wouldn't be surprised if he showed Ace the Bat Hound. People don't know about Ace the Bat Hound unless they saw that child movie that came out 2 years ago with Kevin Hart and The Rock and all of them playing super pets. And The Rock played Crypto, Kevin Hart played Ace, the Bat Hound, and there's all these other super pets. But wait till they find out Batman has a dog and he wears a mask. Crypto wears a cape, but Ace wears a mask. Carson says race-based weapons. Oh, I know how this will turn out. I know, right? And the funny thing is, it kind of defeats the whole argument that race is just a social construct. We've known for a long time that race is not just a social construct. It just became a very convenient thing to say in higher education that race is just a social construct, just like when they say gender is just a social construct. But we're not going to go down that lane today. That will be for another day. I'm gonna have after my geopolitical discussions. I'm gonna start having these live streams where I just say, all right, we're gonna have it out about really controversial topics, and that's gonna be one of them. But for today, I'm just talking about how they are making biological based weapons based on people's like ethnicity. Like there's R&D working on that right now. So that could go badly for several reasons. Cat says interesting to Moonlit. Moonlit says bioweapons are the most scary and nanotech. Yeah, because everyone's accustomed to the terror of nuclear armed attacks since literally the 60s when we had the Cuban Missile Crisis. Um, Allegedly during Trump's administration, we came close to some sort of event as well, but that's a little bit above my pay grade, so I'm not going to go into that in detail. But as scary as nukes are, that's something we are aware of. Biological based weapons is a whole new type of terror. RJ says, are you talking about 90s politics? Not specifically 90s, just talking about the controversy in the Middle East. How likely is everything happening in the Middle East right now to lead to a World War III or global war? Because we are really close between Bashar Assad fleeing Syria and us attacking the people who went after the Assad regime. And it's like, wait, why are we attacking the people who came against the Assad regime? Shouldn't we be welcoming them? But it's so much more complicated than that. Um, and then the continuing war between Israel and Hamas, even though people want to make it Israel versus Palestine, that's just not true. So I'm about to get into that because, like I said, I'm gonna get into the whole Palestine thing, which I talked about a day ago, a few days ago. But I said I was gonna save the bulk of it for a completely separate discussion. Only says he responded to comments. Omar said, what I'm saying is the representatives from Bangladesh talk with papers because they allowed Pakistan to fuck with their country, but it was still called East Pakistan at the time. Well, East Pakistan partitioned themselves from Pakistan the same way during the great partitioning of India, from when Pakistan partitioned themselves from India for religious and political reasons. The people of East Pakistan thought that the people of West Pakistan were overrepresented in the government and were suppressing them. Artist is, why is America so involved in foreign affairs and why do they fund so many countries? So that's one thing Trump said he wants to do is end foreign aid. It really doesn't do that much for us, to be honest, this foreign aid. Or we have yet to see the receipts for it, I should say that. But we're involved in foreign affairs because the world is interconnected. We don't live in a time anymore where we can be completely closed off. As the most powerful nation in the world, it's impossible for us to be closed off at this point. We can pick and choose when we get involved, which is what we've been doing, but it's impossible for us not to get involved in certain things because we have we have treaties with allies in which we have to mutually defend each other. We have these alliances. And even in sovereign countries, sometimes we have to intervene when it can hurt our economy. The thing is, again, since we're talking geopolitics, things can happen in a remote part of the world, which can lead things down a slippery slope where it destabilizes a region of the world. In doing so, that will ultimately affect us. That was World War I. Someone randomly assassinated this freaking nobleman and it set off World War I. Things are that interconnected these days. It's impossible for us to not get involved in things. What is more strategic is that we pick and choose when we get involved and to what degree we get involved. But I do agree that we should really start reining in this foreign aid. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of taxpayer money. Um, Moon says, I don't believe Yemen are pirates. I think they're survivors. I'm talking about the Houthi pirates. I didn't say all of Yemen. I'm not going to, besmirch the entire country. I'm talking about specifically the Houthi pirates that are from Yemen. They were attacking us during, since as we delivered aid to Israel and also to Gaza. People don't know we were sending aid to Gaza as well. But the Houthi pirates were attacking American military vessels. And I was like, they fucking with the right ones because they don't know. Everyone knows about the Navy. They have no idea how many fucking specialized combat units there are in the Coast Guard. There are several. You fuck with the Coast Guard, you fucking with the right ones. People in the military all think the Coast Guard don't do shit. And maybe depending on their specialty, but there are several combat specializations within the Coast Guard. Fucking with matter of fact, it was the Coast Guard that knocked off those Somali pirates back in the day, back in the early 2000s. That was the Coast Guard Special Force. That was Coast Guard Special Forces that did that, not Navy. Everyone thought that was Navy SEALs. Coast Guard, if I remember correctly. Carlton says R.J. Berger military strategy. Omar says, yeah, my dad is from Yemen. Jay says Pierre Trudeau was friends with Fidel, Che, and Hemingway. Lots of Cuban visits, and 9 months later, baby Justin. Justin's mom was known like that too. Google the pics, they look alike. So you trying to say his mom was a 304? That she gave up the buns to Fidel? It's like, Viva la Cuba. Viva la Cuba. Moon says hashtag Vice City. Harden says asking them that may trigger them. Yeah. I just say I understood that when I had a vet who was in Iraq, I think in 2006 he was bottom bunk in rehab trying to blow his money till his end. He'd wake from PTSD and not sure where he was. He said my typing sucks sometimes. Damn. No, I can understand. I can follow that. Carlton says that question was very agent-ish. Yeah, it was, man. That was a straight up like Fed question, yo. Omar says, do they have spicy food in the Philippines? Absolutely. Now, not everyone likes spicy food in the Philippines. My wife doesn't like spicy food, but they do have spicy food in the Philippines. It's regional. A lot of the food is regional. So, where my wife and her family are from, I don't think they really eat a lot of spicy food, but there are, parts of the country where they like spicy food. Melissa says, duh. Or this is dry banana chips with light salt sounds so good right now. That actually, you talking about the plantain chip or just the banana chips? Either one are good. But yeah, I haven't had dry banana chips. Well, the last time I had dry banana chips is like in a trail mix. Like I never ate it by itself. It's usually in a trail mix. Omar said, who is the most second powerful nation in the world? The country that I can't mention. Starts with a C, ends with an A. Leader looks like Winnie the Pooh. Cat says, I agree. Foreign aid is BS. Let countries run their own affairs and deal with their own finances. She says, please like, share, subscribe, and buy Contrarian a coffee or drop a super chat. Thank you, Cat. Moon says, Montana is full of Somalians lately. Can you imagine? I can imagine because we also have a Somalian congresswoman who seems more interested in her own folks than being American. They need to get her the fuck out of office. Seriously, we know who I'm talking about. Ilhan Omar. They need to get her the hell out of office. Anyway, she's I believe in Michigan though. Jay says, "Damn, plantain chips would be good now." I'm glad I'm eating these. I'd be hungry right now, guys. I was supposed to make shit. I was supposed to make pizza earlier. It's too late now. It's almost 1 o'clock. Artist says, I'm imagining both plantain better with salt though. Eric says banana and hot sauce. Just go banana and hot sauce. Mm, I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one, Eric. Hot sauce on the banana chips. I don't know about that one. I don't know. Artist says, where is the fifth largest GDP? Who, where is the fifth largest GDP in the world? I think you're hinting at California, right? If I'm not if I'm not mistaken, I think you're hinting that California is the fifth largest GDP in the world. If it was considered a separate country, it would be the like fifth largest GDP in the world, something like that. Um, Carlton says that leader does look like Winnie the Pooh. When someone pointed that out, I couldn't stop laughing. Oh yeah, he will throw. I can't say who, but yeah, reportedly he will throw people in jail if they openly call him Winnie the Pooh online. Cat says, "What the f, Eric?" I know. I hot sauce on banana chips. I don't see it. Hot sauce on like a Jamaican patty, sure, or you know, on some rice and beans. I knew so many spent man. I remember that was one of the things I loved being in the DC suburbs. Like you know, being part of this Latino community. I lived in the Latino community in the DC suburbs. And I remember, but the school was still like rather very multicultural at the time because there's still a lot of white people there, so it still had a lot of clout, which it doesn't now. My my little sister told me it was ratchet, um, and when it was time for her to go to high school, so she chose another school. But back in the '90s, it was like a very good school. Um, I remember this girl was talking about rice and beans. I don't know. We were talking about it in one class. And she was like, rice and beans. That's my favorite. And she was like, mm. She like just had a moment. She was like, mm. And I was like, I don't know. I was turned on. I was like, damn, these girls are sexy. But anyway, that is neither here nor there. But I could see putting hot sauce on stuff like that, not on fruit. I can see putting hot sauce on any sort of fruit-based food, unless we talk about tomato sauce. And Moon says, yeah, okay, what the F? Artist is, wait, banana, apple is amazing, but hot sauce? He said, yeah. Jay says, Ireland overtook Singapore for top three GDP in the world. I didn't know that. Moonlit says, we know. Cass says, I can understand if it's hot fudge sauce, but hot sauce? I know. I was that a missed was that a typo? Was maybe it was a typo? Moonlit says, we know. Moonlit says, John Cena, right? Because we can't say it. Moonlit says, Google it, chat. RJ says, is there any fruit that's worse than when dipped in chocolate? Um, I don't know. When dipped in I don't, well, I don't dip anything in chocolate. Not my fourth, not really my thing. But I remember what's the all you can eat buffet here in the U.S. They used to have the everlasting ch- chocolate fountain, and I was like, man, this doesn't look hygienic because people were just, they would put the fruit and stuff on a stick and put it under the fountain, but the fountain just, recycled the chocolate, and people were letting stuff drop into the fountain, or they would stick their fingers in it and lick it. I'm like, ew. I'm like, yeah. If I had any, if I had any aspirations to eat that stuff, I don't now. Um, it's not Old Country Buffet because that closed. It's the other one. Um, Someone might remember the name of the buffet, but they had the chocolate fountain, and I always thought it was unhygienic to sit there and with everyone dipping their food in the chocolate fountain, and it just recycles the chocolate. Melissa says Dorian. Ew. Who would dip Dorian in chocolate? Besides that, who would just eating Dorian by itself is a no go for me. But Dorian and chocolate, that is disgusting. If people don't know what Dorian is, look it up. Don't no. RJ said never had Dorian, but I want to try it. No, you don't. Nuh-uh. Melissa says, no, I put salt on fruit. No, did he? Catherine says, stink like hell, taste like heaven. Fruit, Dorian. Nope. That if something stinks, I can't eat it, Cat. It's like chitlins. Like, I'm sure the fact that people have been eating chitlins for the past 400 years means that it's probably tasty, but I can't get over that when it's cooked, it smells like someone flushed the toilet. So I can never eat it. And Dorian stinks. I'm not gonna eat it. I can't do it. Artist says I wouldn't trust that either. Moon says bacon and cachelet rules. I don't know what cachelet is. Catherine says chocolate. Moon says hello, cat thirsty snow bunny. Speaking of snow bunny, oh that's right. Miss Nita went to bed. Damn. But she did. before I went to bed, Miss Nita warned me not to overshare on my live streams anymore. So guys, to my moderators, please make sure I don't like overshare information about myself or any of you on here, because I should not be doing that. That's a definite no go for operational security for all of us. uh, RJ says Dorian is the only fruit banned on public transportation in certain countries. Jay says Dorian is good. Moon says Dorian is gross. Exactly. I was wondering when someone's gonna get the jackfruit. RJ says jackfruit. I hear is similar, and I like that. Jackfruit is different. RJ, it like I've seen jackfruit grow wildly, like in the Philippines and what was it in Bali? I think jackfruit and Dorian aren't the same. Jay says you could call it chocolate fountain. We call it chocolate fondue. It wasn't really fondue though. Well, I guess you could call it fondue, but it was just it, it was like a little sprout with the where the chocolate came out, Jay, and it was at this all you can eat buffet, and people were going there, especially people's kids loved it because you know kids love anything that's like super sweet, so they were all going and getting these little kebabs of fruit and sticking under the chocolate, which was cool. I can understand that being a thing that would attract kids, but kids are also known for being very disgusting. And like I said, they would stick their fingers and stuff in the fountain, but this fountain is just recycling the chocolate. And I'm like, yeah, that is disgusting. So I never had any inclination to try it when I saw, because it seemed all cool and fun in the commercials. But then when you see all these little, you know, all these little bastards looking like rejects from Olive from the Oliver North. I mean not Olive looking like rejects from an Oliver Twist novel, going up there dipping their hands in the chocolate and putting their fruit and swirling it in the bowl, and I'm like, ew, no. Mm-mm. But last time I was there, because I went there for my birthday, because I haven't been there in so long. I went there, 3 months ago, and they no longer. I don't think they might still have it, but no. When I went there was no longer the fountain. I think they got rid of it years ago. Probably. Plus, it was probably too expensive because they would probably have to go in and clean the entire fountain out every day, because obviously if you didn't clean that fountain every day, that chocolate would gum up and clog the spouts. Not to mention all that chocolate would end up, you know, um, turning into germs and stuff as it caused molds and fungus and stuff. So was a good idea in theory, not in practice. Moonless is okay. You lost me at Chitlins. I eat pickles, pig's feet. Mm, no, sir. Cannot do it. Okay, here's another Christmas thing I'm listening to now. Christmas in Japan, second largest city. That must be Osaka. Uh, no, I'm sorry, Yokohama. Um, a long winter night, walk in Yokohama, checking out the illuminations and festivities all along the waterfront. This year, they even had a laser light show in Yamashita Park and fireworks at the Red Brick Warehouse Christmas market. I believe Yokohama is a city within Metro Tokyo, though. So for those who don't know, Tokyo is like a just like some other huge metropolitan, like, well, Tokyo's the largest metropolitan in the world, but it's actually composed of several cities. Just like Metro Manila. Most people don't know Metro Manila is not just a city. There's the city of Manila within Metro Manila, but Metro Manila itself is a megalopolis, like Tokyo is. It's comprised of several cities and municipalities. So, Cat says, LOL, moonlit. Melissa says, I got you, fam. Mm-mm. Boone says, I love chitlins. Nope, can't do it. Cass says, what are chitlins? Moonlit. Jay says, you ever try poutine? No, because I don't eat cheese. When I was dating this Canadian chick long time ago, she was from Quebec. It's funny, she was Guyanese, not African Guyanese, like Latin American Guyanese. Most Guyanese people, have a mixture of Indian, East Indian, not American Indian, East Indian, you know, uh, Black African and Spanish descent, and not to mention Native American descent. So a lot of the women are beautiful there, and she was beautiful. She had me wanting to come all the way to Quebec just to meet her, which I didn't. I don't know why I didn't come up there at the time, but I should have. Anyway, she asked me, did I like poutine? And I was like, no. She's like, oh, you just like that nasty American food. I'm like, chill. I was like, no, I was like, I don't eat it because I don't like cheese. She's like, what? Why don't you like cheese? She's like, you just want fatty American food. I was like, cheese is cheese. I said, that is fatty American food. I was like, I don't have a problem with French fries, but I was like, I would dip them in chili, but I don't like it in cheese because I don't eat cheese. So yeah, I've never had poutine. They've served it here in places I've been. So, but nope. RJ says, why do I keep hearing about poutine? Is it that good? If for some people it is. Cat says it's not an Aussie thing. Moon says try fries with salt and vinegar. Of course, we've had that, of course, here in in Maryland because of um, the fries they serve, the Chesapeake, the Chesapeake Bay, what they call Ocean City fries. Ocean City is like out beach out on the eastern shore of Maryland. They call them Ocean City fries. The salt and vinegar and the Old Bay seasoning. Sherry says, "Hey, what's up, Sherry?" Cass says, "Isn't poutine gravy, chips and gravy?" Well, it's fries. Well, you guys call it chips, but it's French fries with gravy and cheese. That's why I told her I couldn't eat it. Jay says yes, and cheese. Agnes says like, share, and subscribe. Sherry says just stopping by to wish you a happy Merry Christmas. I'm going to be going on my flight, so remember me. Sure, have a safe trip and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, um, Kwanzaa, New Year's, and not to mention like the six other gods whose birthday is also on December 25th. I know it's gonna piss a lot of people off, but yeah, Jesus was the was copying off all the other guys. There was Horus, Mithra, Attis, Hercules, Zarathustra, um, and like three other people. Like there's a whole bunch of gods who were born December 25th of virgin mothers. If you don't believe me, look it up. Smile. Wait, let me wash my mouth out. Pause, because I've been eating a bunch of pistachios. And wait, if I'm smiling, you should be dropping me a super chat. Mm. Gotta take us to the head. Pause. But there you go. Anyway, all right. So now we're gonna get into the controversial part, guys. So we're talking about the Middle East and how likely it can draw us into World War III. Israel and Hamas. I've made no secret in any of my strong videos. I mean, excuse me, former videos. Sherry got me with strong arms. Thank you. I've made no secret that I'm pro-Israeli, but that doesn't mean I don't care about both sides. I do. I don't like seeing innocent people suffer. I can hear you moaning with the drink. Whoa, whoa, pause. I do not moan when I drink anything. That's not how I get down. Yo, Sherry is naughty, guys. Yeah. Mrs. Contrarian is here, so be on your best behavior. But yeah. Um, hold on, let me check something here. All right. Anyway, no, you didn't have to delete that. She's good. Cat, it's all in good fun. Um, Jay says they do gourmet poutine now with bacon or jerk chicken is everywhere. That sounds delicious. I just can't do the cheese part. Now, if I could substitute the cheese with chili, then we good to go. But then it wouldn't be poutine, so that wouldn't be fair. That like that's changing like the main ingredient. Carlton says before World War III, I assume there would be a lot of volatility in the stock market. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Lots of usually the stock market reacts to things that happen after the fact, not before the fact. Like remember after the election when Trump was elected, stocks soared. Like I looked at my IRA, I was like, oh shit, okay, that's what's up. Like because a lot of people was like, I had people complaining saying no one cares about stock. The average person doesn't have stock. I was like, yeah, well, the average person is also an idiot. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have stock just because the average person doesn't. I was like, look, I don't know what you mean by the average person, but a lot of people have 401ks and they have IRAs, which means they have money invested in stock. It's not just about the day traders and people on Wall Street. Like what happens on Wall Street affects all of us, which is what the guy was trying to say on the Dark Knight Rises to the cop who was saying, "I keep all my money under my mattress." If people remember Dark Knight Rises, but in any case, um, yes, uh, like usually what happens in with the stock market is usually a reaction to something that happens: wars, elections, pandemics, um, lots of things. Like when when uh, when when Obama got what's the al-Qaeda leader, stocks went up. Like God, like the stock market is very psychologically driven. So, but it's usually in hindsight to something happening, usually not in foresight. Like basically what I'm trying to say is you can't use what happens in the stock market as a prediction of like world events because usually it's the other way around. Like the stock market is reacting to world events. So, RJ says there a fast food place that mainly has potatoes. Hmm. Um, there's a restaurant I know in the Philippines. I can't remember if Mrs. Contrarian is here. She can tell you the place that just sells like different types of French fries and stuff like that. Yeah, there's several places you can go where they just serve like fries, or then there's like some. There was also like these McDonald's kiosks where instead of it selling like the full McDonald's menu, it was just fries and shakes because people would get the fries and dip it in their shakes. So I don't know if this is just in the Philippines, but yeah, there are McDonald's kiosks instead of it being a full-fledged McDonald's restaurant where they just sell fries and shakes so people can dip their fries. I didn't know that I didn't thing. I thought that was just like a sort of a niche thing that some people like to dip their fries in shakes, but they have a whole bunch of kiosks in parts of the Metro Manila, if not other parts of the Philippines as well, where you can go to McDonald's, buy fries and shakes. And there's a place, like I said, that sells a variety of different types of flavored French fries over there as well. Sherry says, "Are you sure?" I'm not sure about what. Sherry trying to get in trouble. Or we're trying to get me in trouble. uh, or Or were you referring to the bunch of the bunch of gods born on December 25th? They are, because the reason is December 25th happens around winter solstice. So for a lot of ancient people, a lot of people put a lot of religious and cultural significance into winter solstice, because for them, that was the ending of their harvest. This is the time where people were scared that crops would die, animals would die, that or the not to mention that they saw this as like the sort of like the refreshing of like sort of the the renewal of of the world each coming winter. So usually there's always been some sort of cultural religious significance around the happenings of winter solstice, which is why it was ingenious of early Christians to hide the celebration of the birth of Christ around winter solstice, which for them, like I said, involved a bunch of gods that have their births on December 25th to virgin gods, I mean, to virgin mothers, and they could hide it amongst like the Romanian celebration of Saturnalia, if they were living in Rome. But again, there's a bunch of gods throughout the Middle East and pagan Europe that had that were born on December 25th of virgin mothers. So look it up, guys. um, Artist is, what if it was a vegan cheese? Because it still tastes like cheese. I don't like the taste, so I'm not gonna eat it. I've tried vegan cheese when I was a vegan, and it tasted just like cheese. I'm like, ew, I don't like this. Because I tried vegan cheese when I was once a vegan. I was a vegan for a whole year in college. I was a vegetarian for 2 years, but I was a vegan for a year, or less than a year. At least for 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 I was it was at most a year, but it might have been a little bit less. But I was a vegan. Hard to do. It's easy to do in college, where you have those resources, but outside of college, it was very hard. Pause. Uh, sure. It says, wait, no. Teehee. She's like, I will. Carlton says Buddha, Krishna, Mithra. Yep. Were born on December 25th, just to name a few. Yep. Attis. People don't know. Horus, whose mother was Isis. Um, Heracles, better known as Hercules, was as well. Zarathustra was. So, yep. Sherry says stutterness, no diddy. But anyway, so let's jump into the crux of the most contentious part of this discussion today: Israel versus Hamas, or Palestine, whatever. So again, people who support Palestine, again, some of them are sincere, but a lot of them are disingenuous. A lot of them, particularly here in America, only support them because it's brown versus white, and for them, the rich white country is always the bad guy for them. But they don't really support these Palestinians out of rational argument, because if it's I want to support these Muslims, then why don't we see the same sentiment for Muslims in other countries where they are being oppressed? For instance, in Myanmar, Hindus are unaliving Muslims there. In fact, it got so bad that a woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize and became the president of Burma at the time was ousted through a military coup and put back into onto house arrest, which he had been on for decades, by the way, uh, because of her support of this 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 catastrophe. Then also there are a Muslim people who are an ethnic minority in a certain country that I can't mention, who are oppressed as well. People don't talk about that. Not to mention, Muslims are not um, face a little bit of oppression in Japan. people aren't aware of this stuff. They just know Palestine because it just becomes trendy, and they can virtue signal by putting a little free Palestine flag on their fucking social media, and they really don't know what's going on. Then the ones who know something of what's going on don't know enough of it. They just know just enough to be misinformed. They was like, well, Israel was. They was like, well, Israel attacked them before October 5th, 2022. I'm like, yes, they have, but it's been a back and forth going on for decades. And then, like I said, if you really want to take it there, this has been going on literally since the biblical times. Because some of these people was like, well, Palestine was here first. I'm like, that's not true. They was like, yes, it was. Israel wasn't formed to 1947. I was like, yes, the modern state of Israel wasn't formed in 1947. But I was like, if you're going to use Palestine as the name of the ancient nation state, then we can go back even further and say that Israel predates Palestine by 1,500 years. 1,500, it predates Palestine by 1,500 years. They was like, oh. Then they try to move the goalposts. Well, that was back then. We're talking about modern day times. I was like, no, you were the one who tried to go beyond modern day times. So when it comes to historical facts, people who support Palestine don't have history on their side. Okay. So if they want to go back to modern times, that's not going to help. If they want to go back to biblical times, it doesn't help. Because again, if we go back to biblical times, Israel, the kingdom of Israel predates Palestine by 1,500 years. Then, you know, after this, after the kingdoms of Israel and Judah fell, and we have Palestine and all that. Uh, Palestine didn't last that long either. Like, we've had, they were Roman occupation, the Ottoman Turk occupation, um, the brief occupation during the Holy Crusades of the Christian Europe, where they set up Israel as a Christian, temporarily as a temporary Christian nation. Then again, like I said, after that, they, were ruled, I believe, by the Turks and others for a long time. But when we get to modern day times, before the modern state of Israel was established in 1947, at that time, that Palestinian Israeli area was actually governed and under the occupation of Britain, and Britain ruled it as a multicultural state. There was no just Arab only Palestine or Israel or Jewish only Israel at the time. It was a multicultural place. And after the the events of World War II, Britain decided, along with the UN, to set up the modern state of Israel for the Jewish refugees who have had a Jewish diaspora all across the world, and decided they need a nation state of their own. And for all these people saying, well, Israel suppresses blah 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 blah, have in mind here there are roughly 50 Muslim nations across the world. 50. I mean, they're all the way in Southeast Asia. Indonesia is the largest Muslim nation in the world, and it's in Southeast Asia. And I've been there. Lovely place. Right next to it is Malaysia, another Muslim nation in Southeast Asia. Not to mention Timor Leste, and but country starts with a B. I forgot. You got a bunch of Muslim nations in Southeast Asia alone. Half of the Philippines, the southern part. Most people know the Philippines is a Catholic country, which for the most part it is. But the southernmost part of the Philippines, called Mindanao, that is all Muslim. In fact, there's a faction of them in Mindanao that are in open rebellion against the Philippine national government. So this is something we'll get into when we talk about the Philippines and Southeast Asia and this different geopolitical discussion. But getting back to the Middle East and getting back to Palestine. So historical facts don't help them because before the modern state of Israel, there was no state of Palestine. There was different Palestinian tribal groups living amongst Israel, Palis- Palestinian Jews. There were Palestinian Jews and there were Palestinian Arabs all living together in a state that was occupied by Britain before the modern state of Israel. After the antis, after the events of World War II, a portion of that was sliced off and made the modern state of Israel. And immediately after that happened, every neighbor surrounding Israel attacked them, which became the first of five, not one, not two, not three, not four, but five Israeli Arab wars. They were immediately attacked by all their surrounding neighbors. Five wars. Five. And after those five wars, there were three attempts to to um to take down the the Israeli government, which were called the infantadas. And I know I'm mispronouncing it. People want to get me on the pronunciation. I get it. But the infantadas, there were three of them. So during the fourth Israel Arab War, Egypt, attacked Israel. And here's the thing, people keep talking about Gaza. Gaza was part of Egypt at the time. It wasn't a part of a Palestinian state. Again, it was part of Egypt. Egypt lost the Gaza Strip to Israel in the fourth war that Egypt provoked. They attacked Israel. In the fifth war, they tried to get Gaza back, and they failed in doing so. Even with that, there was um, an Egyptian political party called the Muslim Brotherhood, and a faction of them were Hamas. At the time, Hamas was actually welcomed by the Israeli government as a charitable organization. They were basically like a part of the Muslim Brotherhood. They were considered like a non-profit organization, a charitable organization. They were welcomed by the Israeli government and funded by them to help, you know, Israeli Palestinians, Israeli Arabs. They were radicalized during during the three infantadas to bring down the Israeli government by people like Hezbollah and Iran. The Iran, Revolutionary Guard is considered a terrorist organization. That's when Hamas was radicalized. And unfortunately, when the people of Gaza were given their ability to elect their own provincial, their own municipal or whatever government, their own government, they chose Hamas. Another thing people need to realize is, um, in 2007, the Israeli government made all the Israeli Jews pull out of the Gaza Strip and said, "This is just for the Palestinians. You guys must leave." And when they left, you guys can look this up. Gaza was not the hellhole that it is today. It did not look like a war zone. It did not look like a combat zone back then. It looked it was a decent place to live. The Palestinian Arabs fucked that up. They messed the Gaza Strip up. Matter of fact, the Palestinian people living in the West Bank on the other adjacent to Gaza, they were ruled by the Palestinian Authority. They decided not to hold open elections because they were scared that their people would do just like the people of Gaza and and put into power a group like Hamas, another radical Islamic group. So Palestinian Authority held off open elections in the West Bank. And regardless of whether you said, well, Israeli defense forces have attacked people in the Gaza Strip multiple times, that's what led to the October 5th attacks in Israel. That doesn't bode well because you're talking about attacking military targets in which there is collateral damage compared to someone intentionally attacking just citizens. Like they were at a music festival, so I was like, imagine someone being at Coachella and the neighboring country in which we have beef with just attacks a bunch of innocent people at Coachella. That's what that was like. And then the people whom they didn't unalive, they take as hostages and still have those hostages to this day. Like everyone's telling the Israeli Defense Forces they need to do a ceasefire, and I'm like, no. How you gonna tell them to do a ceasefire before they give back the hostages? Like you're not in a moral position to tell them to do a ceasefire when the other people are still holding their family and friends as hostages. I mean, if this happened on American soil, we would have been way worse than Israel. We would have been way more hawkish. Just look at everything that happened after the September 11th attacks of 2001. Because of that, we were mired in a war for 20 years. So imagine someone doing what they did to Israel to us, and we're telling them a ceasefire, and they still have their hostages to this day. No, if you have if you had beef with me and decided to attack my house and took all my family away as hostages, the ones you didn't unalive, I would come at you with everything I had until you give them back, and only until you give them back. So Israel has shown a lot of restraint, and to say that it's a genocide is also playing with words too. A genocide is like an intentional trying to obliterate an entire people, or ethnocide, same thing. They are not attempting to do that because at any time they wanted to do that, they could have done that. They are not. They're they're strategically going after Hamas and people they think are in alliance with them. And like I said, we know that Hezbollah over in Lebanon are assisting them. We know that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is assisting them. We know that Houthi pirates are assisting them by attacking American and other vessels trying to bring aid and support to Israel and Gaza. This is likely to mesh to get us into World War III. Then we see things still going on in Afghanistan, Iraq, and now Syria, where the the Assad regime, which has been in power for the longest, has fell, and Bashar Assad fled to Moscow, and for whatever reason, our current presidential administration decided to attack the people who ran the Assad regime out of Syria. And I was like, wait, what? I thought they were our enemies. So it's very muddled there. So I'm gonna get back into the comments. RJ says all the pictures of scared children that upset me from the war zone. I get that. Carlton says I think Israel is going to be established in Uganda after World War One. I don't see how, because they had no historical precedence in Uganda. If it, like at the time, Uganda, um, I, yeah, I think Uganda was still a colony at the time. I don't know how that would help between all the ethnic tribes of Uganda, all the East Indians living in Uganda. I I I don't see how that would happen. Plus, there was no Holocaust in World War I, so I don't think there was no historical precedence to put them in Uganda, unless that's a typo. But yeah, so that's the controversy, and I guess we can get into that. I purposely saved that for the end because I knew that would be the most contentious part of this talk. Sorry, I'm snacking, guys. It's too late for me to cook anything. Well, I can make a sandwich. But yeah, I don't see any comments, so if not, I mean, I can end this because 2 hours in, over 2 hours in. Maybe some people just disagreed and left. That's fair. That's completely fair. But the all these things coming together can easily start off, can kick off World War III. I remember a long time ago I've heard that one of the ways that could kick off World War III would be if someone blew up the temple in Jerusalem, because the temple in Jerusalem is used by each of the three major religions. Part of it is used as a mosque, part of it is used as a synagogue, and part of it is used as a Christian church. I'm not sure which, if it's Coptic or Catholic or something else, but it's the temple is seen as the first Christian church ever. This in Jerusalem, but it's also part of it is a mosque and part of it is a synagogue. So it's been thought that if someone attacked or destroyed that temple in Jerusalem, that would likely kick off World War III just on itself. Luckily, that has never happened. But it could likely happen when we saw during the Trump administration that he supported Israel moving the capital to Jerusalem. So that could be very dangerous. Still got a bunch of pistachios left, so I'm saving that for another day. Been munching on these paws for 4 days. Mm, I don't see any other comments, so if there isn't any, I'll probably go, guys. Was It is late anyway. It is 1:39. Oy vey. So, um, since I don't see any comments, unless I'm missing, am my messages screwing up here? Me. Sometimes I gotta play with the filter because some things will be held for no reason. Um, mm, hmm. Okay, I got it back on all messages. All right. Omar says, "Yeah, I'm here. Hope you're not playing with tarot cards." I don't know what people's big deal is. First of all, you need to go back to my previous live streams. I'm a scientific minded person. I have no reason to play with tarot cards. Two, there's nothing. Tarot cards don't do anything. It's if people believe in that nonsense, they believe in it. But it's nothing. It's a nothing. It's a big nothing burger. Tarot cards works on subjective validation, aka the fallacy of personal validation, aka the Forer effect, aka the P.T. Barnum effect. They are bullshit, and it also uses confirmation bias, a form of selective thinking, and the belief effect. I guess some live streamers use tarot cards. One of the friends I have on here, another YouTuber, she does tarot cards. I don't know what people are against about that. I don't know why people are so scared something's going to happen. Y'all really need to get out of that magical thinking. Nothing can be happen. I'd be more scared of someone who wants to play Uno than tarot cards or Tonk or Whisk. But anyway, I don't get the whole anti tarot card thing. I've never used tarot cards. I don't know how they work other than what I've seen on movies. I know some live streamers do it, but again, I'm not religious, so if you got a religious problem with people with tarot cards, take it up with them. Not my problem. Carlton says, I wonder if Project Bluebeam or World War III come first. I don't know what Project Bluebeam is. Omar says, let me tell you that your dog died and your mom has cancer and you're going to get a new wife. What? What the fuck? What? What? Anyway, Carlton says, how come these tarot card readers can't tell me when my reparations is coming? Exactly. All that sort of stuff. Guys, I literally spelled this out. So before I did this whole geopolitical discussion, I did a whole thing on the paranormal. And I talked about psychic readings and I debunked the thing with the paranormal discussion. People didn't realize what I was doing. Each topic I brought up about the paranormal, I was actually debunking it by having a discussion about it. And tarot cards falls under psychic readings, and I debunked how psychic readings work. Cold reading skills, sometimes warm reading skills, subjective validation, confirmation bias. If psychics were successful, they would be rich. Anyway, that has nothing to do with my discussion. You keep taking it to something that has nothing to do with my topic. My topic is the Middle East, how it could lead to World War III, and I just spelled out what's going on right now and why it could get us into another global war in the Middle East after we just ended our final war with in the Middle East back in 2021 when we pulled out of Afghanistan in a very shitty way, which left the people of Afghan basically at the mercy of the Taliban. Their own fucking president fled to Europe like a bitch that he is because their government has only been propped up by us maintaining the peace in their country. And that was unfair to American taxpayers and to our military that we had to keep that they only could have a democracy by us keeping a military presence there. Kind of the same thing in Iraq, but different. We aren't in an open warfare in Iraq anymore, and but most of the stability in Iraq has been through our constant presence. We have the largest U.S. embassy in the world in Baghdad, Iraq. Not the largest in the Middle East, the largest in the world. We have the largest American embassy in the world in Baghdad, Iraq, which is is a fortified built like buildings. Like it looks it looks more like a military installation than a than an American embassy, like a foreign embassy. At least that's an embassy. We in aren't in open combat in Iraq. Although there's been stuff that's been popping off here and there, but they're in better shape than Afghanistan. um, Omar says, okay, so why do you think that's what's going on in the Middle East will cause another world war? What is your reason? I've literally just laid that out. I literally just laid it out why. You have a bunch of different players here, there in the Middle East vying between pro Israel and pro Palestine. But like I said, Palestine really is a concept. It's not a actual nation. Like people keep saying free Palestine as if there's an actual state that's under suppression, and it's not. There hasn't been an actual Palestine since ancient times. Ever since then, it has been ruled by outside people, outside rulers, whether Rome, the Turks, and others. To say free Palestine is an ideology. It's not it's not an actual nation state. So they can call Israel an occupying force, but but that takes away from the fact that there has been Palestinian Jews living there since the beginning. They are not just the Jews who fled Europe. They have been Israeli Jews or Palestinian Jews living there since time immemorial. These two people have lived in that same place since the beginning of civilization in that place. So it would be kind of like trying to choose between, if I bring it here to America, like choosing between the Algonquin people and the Iroquois people. They have both lived in the same place, warring against each other since they've since there have been Indians living in that land. There's been Algonquian people. There's been Iroquois people. So same thing in that part of the world. There have been, there have been, you know, Palestinian Jews and Palestinian Arabs living there since the beginning. or if you could, or rather, Israeli Jews and Israeli Arabs, whichever one you want to call it. But to say free Palestine, you're talking about a concept, like an ideology, because even the Palestinian people are made of different factions. If they weren't unified and fighting against the Israeli government, they would be fighting amongst each other for control of the Palestinian region. That's another thing people don't want to admit, that they don't realize that there's different Palestinian factions. Mm-mm-mm. Carlton says that was wild seeing those people holding on the wing of a moving airplane. Yo, that was wild. Yeah, or they were holding on to the wheels as it went up into the plane, and some of them fell off. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, that's crazy. Like it that was such a bungled pullout pause. Like, first of all, they shouldn't have they shouldn't have staged the military leaving from the Afghanistan airport. They should have left from the Langram base, the U.S. base there. Like, that's where they should have. They they just abandoned a military installation full of military vehicles and weaponry and munitions and supplies. That was crazy to pull out from a civilian airport. Whose idea was that? Omar says, "Yeah, okay, that's not sound good for Palestine." Sherry does the three dots eclipses. Omar says, "You have." He said, "Oh, my dad told me that it was 1945 or 1944 or whatever, that the people were kicked out of a certain area and then Israel was created." No one. That's not how it was. It wasn't people were kicked out. It was, no, we are establishing this area as the modern state of Israel. Fun fact: people wanted Albert Einstein to be the second president of Israel, but he declined because he said politics isn't his thing. He'd rather stick to science, and he co-founded a university there in Israel, which I think is called the Hebrew University, I believe. But he was a co-founder of this university in Israel. But he was asked to be the second president of the country, which he declined because he said he'd rather stick to what he knew best, which is science, than politics. Smart of him. But they didn't kick anyone in 1944, 1945 that I can recall, because again, the war didn't World War II didn't end until 1945. Okay. 1944 was D-Day, when we finally turned the tides against the Axis powers in Europe. Matter of fact, the war was already won on the battlefront of Europe before it was over in the Pacific Rim, which ended with the droppings of the two bombs, the two atomic bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Not to mention the firebombing of Tokyo, which is heinous. Um, but as far as I know, Britain. I don't know what people would have been kicked out of out of the Palestine at the time in 1944, 1945. Because, like I said, it was under the occupation of Britain at the time, not not the Jewish people. And I don't think people realize that. People don't realize British was that before before the modern state of Israel, Britain was the occupying force of Palestine, if they want to call it Palestine. But there was no Palestine prior to there was no modern state of Palestine prior to the modern state of Israel. It was an occupied country or occupied territory by Britain. So Carlton says that operation was sloppy. Indeed, that was it. It yeah, it was rushed. Number one, it was rushed. It was poorly executed. We should have worked. If the Taliban was going to eventually step in anyway, we should have actually created a sort of we should have created a better communication with them and them coming to reclaim the government, or gave the government at that time the the ability to hold off the Taliban and maintain their own government. But if in 20 years they couldn't provide for their own defense, then that's just too fucking bad for them. But I care more about how it messed us up in the eyes of the world and how it weakened our military in that rush pullout. But as far as the Afghani government, again, they had 20 years to prepare to do things on their own. And the fact they needed us to maintain their defense means it was a sunken cost and a pointless one. After we did what we had to do in 2001, we should have just left. It was no point after 2002 to have been there another 19 years. Omar says some people say that the gas chambers never existed. Yes, those are called Holocaust deniers, and we you can literally go to those people have never been to Poland or Germany where you can see these places. They are still up. You can still visit these places. Besides that, we still have people living today who are Holocaust survivors. There are literally people who are still Holocaust survivors. This is what discredits Palestinian supporters when they say stupid shit like that. Anyone who tries to claim that that the events of the Holocaust did not happen are Holocaust deniers, and they don't have historical evidence on their side. We have numerous documentation from the Nazis. We have eyewitness accounts of American and British and Russian military who've been there, and French. We have the testimonies of the survivors. So I don't give a shit about any dumbass who wants to deny reality because it paints a narrative to make Jewish people seem bad. That's called anti-Semitism. So anyone who's going to that would be the same as people claiming that during the transatlantic slave trade there weren't these places set up in Africa on the coast of West Africa and Central Africa. There weren't these huge fortresses where they exported the slaves across the Atlantic. They existed. They are still there as historical sites that can be visited to this day, just like there are places in Poland and Germany and, and Austria where you can still visit these places where they executed these folks and kept them in concentration camps. They still exist as historical sites. Carlton says British had a lot of territories on lock back then. Indeed, they still do. This is why the British, I think the this is why the British royal family, I think, are still the wealthiest land, um, some of the wealthiest landowners still in the world. I mean, they fought a whole war over the Falkland Islands in South America. So, but anyway, um, yeah, it's like people forget the British was the occupying force back then. They act like Israel has always been this evil thing. So they were given, like I said, you can call them an occupying force, but they were literally put there by the powers that be at the time, by the victors of World War II, which came to form the UN. Britain, along with the others that formed the UN, decided they need their own to avoid the events of World War II. Again, these people need to have their own nation they can call their own. And what better place to be than the historical site, than the site of the historical kingdom of Israel? Again, after the Israeli Arab wars, they've expanded their nation. But again, that was through a process of multiple wars and the infantadas, the people trying to overthrow the Israeli government. So if after 5 wars where all your neighbors are trying to obliterate you, and then you have the people living within your country trying to take down the government 3 times, it might turn the people of that government to be a bit hawkish. Not that I agree with everything that they do, because I've stated that multiple times, but you there is historical precedent for them being so hawkish currently. Not that I agree with the stuff that they do. Half of the Israeli population disagrees with their government. So, which sounds kind of like us, right? Half of people here in America disagree with the government. So, um, Kat says I've been to Auschwitz, Birkenau. The feeling there was awful. Yeah, thank you, Kat, because let him know this place is not made up. He need to stop listening to people around him who've never even been to Europe talking about those places never existed. Yes, they did exist. We have historical evidence. We have eyewitness testimony to corroborate that historical evidence from survivors, from um, combat veterans, from spies. Like we have so much deep. This is why they can make so many movies about that, because this stuff has been so well documented. So for people to be denied Holocaust deniers in this day and age, it just shows they're conspiracy theorists, because that's some of the most well documented information we have on any war. Like World War II is like when we really start really documenting wars. Vietnam was even more so, which is what started making people more pacifist about wars, when people realized actually how bad they were. We had a lot of info coming in about World War II, but as the war was going on, a lot of that stuff was obviously managed to look better than what was really going on. But when we see that stuff today, it is horrific. To say those things didn't happen when people have experienced it and suffered from it, is completely absurd. It's just it's just a way of trying to paint the current Jewish people as evil just because people don't like them. Let's and I'm going to be even more bold. There's a lot of black people in the black community in America that dislike Jews because they are anti-Semitic because they basically don't like the success of Jews. There's a lot of anti-Semitism in America amongst different groups, including black people, just because they are disdainful of their success. So I'll put it out there. Some people just don't like them. One, because they're white, and two, because they're successful. Which is ironic since for the longest time Jews weren't even considered white in America. But whatever. Carlton says President Eisenhower helped them. Yep. Omar says, yeah, but it was amazing that one time the British show how you want to call the UK occupied so many countries across the world. Yes, they were the British Empire at one point, but the sun has started settling on the British Empire. Now they fight it out. Now they fight it out about blue-haired women with septum rings talking about. Never mind. I'm not gonna even go there. But yeah. um, Cass says the place exists. I've stood in there, deep, deep unrest there. I cried. Corky's on timeout because he sounds retarded. Anyway, James says hi from San Antonio, Texas. What's up, James? Guys, I'm gonna end this. It's late. I'm losing my voice, and you know, we probably diverged from the conversation for an entire hour talking about random stuff. So this was more civil than what I expected. So I appreciate Omar, um, you know, giving us his views. But like I said, we can disagree on a lot of things, but uh, denying historical reality, that's not good. I'm not one who's a historical revisionist, nor do I believe in historical relativism that some things are good then that are bad now. I don't believe that. I think things there were some things were always some things were always morally permissible and some things were always morally impermissible, regardless of the era in which it happened. You know, for instance, slavery has happened throughout the history of human civilization. It doesn't mean that just because it happened before a certain point that it was good or okay. No, it was always bad. It's just that it was more accepted. If something was accepted doesn't make it morally permissible, and vice versa. Just because something was considered unacceptable doesn't mean it was morally impermissible. So for the longest time, you couldn't have interracial marriages, interreligious marriages, intertribal marriages. Um, we won't go with the other thing because that is more contentious. But just because people were against the mingling of people from different racial groups, from different nation states, from different religions, or from even different social classes, doesn't mean that it was okay. Just because it was unacceptable didn't mean it was immoral. So I don't believe in historical relativism, nor do I nor do I engage in, again, historical revisionism, which is when you change historical facts to fit to fit a certain narrative today. So because Israel is so disliked in the world arena, a lot of people want to revision the things that led to the modern state of Israel being what it is today to paint them in a worse light. If someone's doing something wrong, you don't have to paint them in a worse light to show why what they're doing is wrong. Vice versa, if someone is doing something good, you don't have to dress up the bad things they've done in the past to show why they are in a good light today. We're capable of doing nuance, right? So that's what I want to say about that. And like I said, the events going on right now are a powder keg situation, which could easily lead to global warfare. And people did, and some people's like, how? I'm like, look, we're mired in a bunch of different conflicts in the Middle East right now, not to mention heightened tensions. Okay, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Israel, Yemen, and I may have missed one, but oh, and I yeah, Lebanon and Iran. Sorry. So if all these places decide they are going to form against Israel and we're backing Israel, this leads to intercontinental conflict, and right, and people have different alliances with the big boys on the plate. We're one of the big boys, but there's two other big boys on the plate, right? Russia being one, and the other one I can't mention. If they jump in, if they jump in the fray, and we're jumping in the fray, there you go. Hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully, as we saw, people were starting to step back when they saw that Trump was elected. Hezbollah was like, "We're backing down." Hamas was saying they were open to negotiations. Iran has not backed down, but we'll see. Um, I don't know what's going on with Syria. Honestly, that is confusing as hell to me. That we were not friends with Bashar Assad. He was backed by Russia, his regime. The fact that his regime has toppled, he's fled to Russia, but then we attacked the people that brought down the Assad regime is utterly confusing to me, and that would probably take some research on my part to understand that. And I don't know if I have the patience. But anyway, I'm gonna end it there, guys. Thank you, Omar, for the conversation. We're gonna be sticking with Asia for the next geopolitical discussion, but it's gonna be in a different part of the world. Um, so we'll leave it there, guys. Appreciate everyone. Thank you. Thank you to my moderators that jumped in. Nightcat, thank you. All right, guys. Talk to you later.